Welcome into a new episode of the Bobcast. This is Matt Ambrose, and we'll start things off here today with men's lacrosse and head coach Steve Gartelman. Coach, you had a great win over the weekend at Lake Erie on Saturday. Come from behind win, 12-11 over the Storm. Just your takeaways overall from a really great win.
Yeah, great win without question. We talked to the guys. It's never about being perfect. We just want to go out there and find a way to put it together. But it was a tough day. Lake Erie, incredibly talented team. Not as deep as Frostburg in the sense of numbers, but gifted in who they have and how they play. They're a really tough program that came out and gave us their best. So it was a tough day for us to, make sure that we came out and put our best foot forward. Didn't quite get there early on in the game. Bus ride, kind of first one of the seasons. It's always an experience to get that figured out, where we go through it. And doing it in the COVID experience is somewhat different as well. So that was all new for us. So tough day in the sense of first-time experiences for a lot of us and going against a tough opponent. But the guys answered. The guys knew, throughout the whole time. We had our chances. We were going to get our moments. It's a game of runs in lacrosse. We know that, we went on one to start the game. They heated up in the middle. We got to finish off our way. It was something where they wanted to win, for me, they want to win for themselves. It was something. There's a lot of investment from both sides of this game to get a win for some reason, extra than just a W. So there's a lot of emotions in it too, which I think we had to manage of just, letting ourselves care, but not letting ourselves get distracted from how much we care. So it was a good balancing act for us, and to find a win at the end of all that with how well that team was playing against us, I was really proud to see our guys pull out a gritty win in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you talk about how it's a game of runs, and you're down midway through the fourth quarter by 3, 10-7 is the score. 4 straight unanswered goals for you guys to take an 11-10 lead. They tie it up with a little over a minute left. 30 seconds later, Tanner Donaldson, with under a minute left, finds the back of the net, 12-11. You guys get the win. What changed in the final 6 minutes, and what did those final six or so minutes of this game say about your team?
Sure. Poise. I think that's the most important thing. Poise and trust. You don't have poise in those tough moments unless you trust yourself and each other, and vice versa. So that's what we talked about the whole game, was trying to find ways to trust each other in a tough moment. Mistakes happen. If we talk through it and own those mistakes, we can still trust each other in those moments. So without question, I made a few. The guys made a few. It's a human element. There's always going to be a few mistakes in the game. But they are full of poise, and they trust each other fully. So we were getting to that 6-minute range. We just scored a goal. I think it might have been a man-up goal we got right before that 6-minute clock showed on the clock. And talked to the attack just before the face-off. I said, fellas, we have to be aggressive, but there's no rush yet. And that's the beauty of adding the shot clock to men's lacrosse, is that there's some predictability of, we're going to get these many possessions back in this amount of time. We have some time to work with, so we don't have to panic. We don't have to do too much just yet. So we talked about that. The guys gave me the nod, the thumbs up, and they went out and just played. And we were able to play a lot of guys. Our first attack came out in the first quarter, started off really well. Then things happened. It's a human element, as we said. It just didn't seem like they were as clicking, as some of the other groups that were put together through our second attack in. Gavin, Austin Sipes, Jason Clinton, they gave us an awesome spark, a couple goals, couple great looks off the post. Then we bring that first attack back just to kind of make sure that we tell them that we trust them still and fully believe in them. And their second chance, they came out and flying around, and they woke up off the bus in a much different way. So it was good to see us be able to play deep, use all the guys we have, and for guys to not know, to know that because we made a sub doesn't mean that we're not, coming back to you. Doesn't mean that we've given up on you. It's just, let's try something new. Let's make this thing happen. And the guys being poised and trusting each other, we're able to trust us by putting some new guys out there and making it work. And like we say all the time here, in this year especially, just find a way.
No, and you talk about the how deep this team is, and you look at kind of like the usual suspects, like the Paul Ruperts and the guys like that. Rupert had 2 goals on Saturday, but you also, I mentioned Tanner Donaldson had the game winner, one of his 2 goals. Matt Ward had a goal and 3 assists as well. Guys outside of that top attack that you just talked about really seem to be the guys in this one to kind of diversify your look offensively.
Yeah, it's a beautiful luxury for us to have, on the offensive side. Sometimes it's tough because we want to play everybody. Right. There's just only so many minutes and so many opportunities. So there's a lot of good lacrosse players right now that maybe aren't getting full amount of minutes that they're truly capable of, but that's just because we're so deep and we're finding ways to get them out there. So it's fun to have that as a coaching staff. It's really exciting to have that many options, be able to put guys together. And it was some new guys in the sense of this year, guys that we see all the time, in our practice, getting out there and making plays. I thought one guy who really stood out as far as making some plays in big moments was Nick Gallagher. He was another guy, takes a lot of wings for us, does a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff that doesn't get the hype and the hoot and hollers as much. But he's a goal scorer too. He can play the ball. He shoots the lights out when he gets hot, and that's what he did in the fourth quarter. Second half, I think he even got one in the third quarter on the far side, was make some tough plays. He curled once, ran through a couple checks, crushed one on the far side. Then coming down on our side, I think it was the one that either tied it up or got us within one. And he comes down the alley out of the box and crushes one with his left hand, looks at the bench, and just gets all the guys hyped. And it was something that we really needed right there, of just look at how close we're getting. We make a big, excited play and just kind of say, look, we're going to get this done. We're going to make it happen. We believe now. So I think all those guys making their mark, and then Nick Gallagher really coming up and making some plays beyond just the tough ones that he always makes. He made some real, spotlight plays, so to say, where he put some nice goals in there. And it's just a matter of time and place. Jason Clinton can always heat up here and there. Bubba Love is a guy that you saw a little bit. I think he got 1 or 2 assists in the game, plays in the EMO. Owen McCollum is playing really good. We've got JoJo Edwards, who's a defensive mid who could play 2 ways for us. So it's just so many different ways and so many different opportunities for us to be aggressive on offense. And also guys like Tanner and Nick and JoJo we talked about. They're not just offensive threats; they play defense too. So they're a very versatile group, which gives us a lot of luxury to go out and be multiple in how we attack the day. And each and every day it could be number 1, number 19, number 15, number 22, whoever, and that's a fun part for us.
You talked about at the start how obviously it's a game of runs and obviously adjustments are going to be made throughout the game. Lake Erie seemed to turn it on a little bit towards the middle part of that game and forcing you guys to have to battle back. What were they showing you throughout that middle portion of the game that was maybe giving you guys some issues, and how did you make those adjustments as the game wore on?
Sure. The 2 biggest parts, I think, for them was they're clear. They had a good adjustment against our ride where they were able to hit some deep passes. We didn't quite expect that. We saw their midfield action, which we covered well. They had a good adjustment to hit some deep passes against our ride, which gave their talented guys, some of their shooters, a lot of space to work on after the ride was broken. So halftime, we talked about an adjustment there. We pulled our ride back, not off completely, but just to pull the intensity back a little bit. And that went a long way to not give them as much space, to not give them as much opportunities to just dodge and shoot. And the second thing was they couldn't miss the net. They were shooting the lights out. They were a really talented group of guys. We were maybe a step late on a rotation, a step late on a slide, and they're just making us pay for it. So some of the stuff we did was let's not slide as often so we don't have to worry about that timing. It's a little more of let's win that matchup and slide less often so there's less chance for them to find a backside open man. And the adjustment on the ride was a big change, in my opinion, where we got a couple 60-second clocks where we get the ball back. I believe we had them clearing at about 70%, which is something that really tilts the field our way. We were probably, I think we failed 1 clear on the day from what I recall. So when the numbers go that way as far as defensive stops to the offensive possession, ride to clear, it kind of tilts the field, and we get those opportunities to claw back into a game that we really needed to. So I think the ride was a big change, and then just understanding how do we defend these shooters from getting those hands-free shots.
Look at the guys on the defense. You have Matt Sharkey caused 3 turnovers. Colson Gregory also caused a pair of turnovers as well. Challenged a bit more than they were at Walsh when that was a game you handily won, but this is a Lake Erie team that now back-to-back years you guys have played 1-goal games against. Of course, last year going to overtime. When you look at those guys I mentioned, Sharkey and Gregory, as well as the rest of the defense, what was your evaluation of that group?
Yeah, it was something where the Lake Erie offense runs a very unique kind of set that doesn't let us do what we want to do on the defensive end, so we had to make some adjustments. Normally we want to slide this way, and we have our help defense this way. And with the offense we saw, it was really an abstract kind of thought where we had to kind of make things happen our way or adjust dramatically, which we did both of those in the game, and just kind of pick and choose what worked when and how we were seeing them attack. But those guys talked through everything. They worked through everything. It was far from a perfect game on their side of the ball. They know they have a higher standard as far as what they want to do in every quarter. But what they did in every quarter was come over and talk to us. Coach, here's what we're seeing. Here's what we're thinking. This guy's playing great. Let's get him on that matchup. Let's slide to this. And just a really, poise is what we keep coming back to, and trust of like, I can talk to Coach about some concerns I have, and he's going to hear me out. We're going to talk through this. It's not a situation where we're going to say, here's what we're doing. just do it. We want to make sure that those guys have a say in it, and that's how we piece these things together when they're not going perfect. We set up a game plan that we believe in. It was a tough day because of what the offense gives us, because of that unique set they run. So we had to talk through a lot of stuff. So those guys are really, really mature and poised in that intense moment, and they all did their part. There's obviously, everyone wants to play back here and there. I want a time out back here and there throughout the game, but they all did their part to get what we needed done against a really tough offense. And I can't say enough about Jack Marks in the cage, picking up 16 saves and really being a calming presence. Everybody gets revved up when things aren't going well, and sometimes for a goalie, it's most easy for you to get revved up. He was very calm, very focused, and just made his saves when he could.
You're now 7-0 at Division II, the 5-0 mark you had last year before the season was stopped, and then 2 wins to start off this season. What kind of statement is your team making here, playing at such a high level coming into this new division?
Yeah, it started last year, and it's nothing where we can copy what last year was. This year it's 2 very different seasons, but the mindset's more or less the same. Last year was plant the flag. It was our first year D2. We wanted to make sure that the Bobcat logo, the Frostburg name was known, not just as a program, as a very competitive program in Division II. So I think we're definitely doing that. And when we talk about planting the flag, nobody climbs the mountain to plant the flag halfway up. You want to climb the mountain, plant the flag at the top. And that's what we're trying to do. Not that we are trying to be braggadocious or anything like that. We want to set ourselves lofty goals to work towards. If we fall a little bit short, so be it. We're at least in a great spot, and we know what we're capable of and where we want to work for. So the guys are talking a lot about plant the flag, and this year, because COVID is a little bit different, it's find a way. It's not just about planting the flag and making ourselves known. We should be somewhat known at this point. We still have work to do. We're very much the new kids on the block still. But the idea of finding a way to make sure that we can get through testing, we can participate in the masks how we're supposed to. We do all the stuff we have to do throughout the weekday while preparing to play a game. Then we have to go out and find a way, and it's not always going to be pretty, but just put it together, having poise, trusting each other, and making things work goes a long way for us. So the guys are talking a lot like that and trying to find ways to connect outside the norm. It's not a way where you can just go ahead and have a bite to eat together. You can't have the guys over and play Xbox together all in the same way. So you have to do things a little bit differently. So we're challenging them to talk to each other, get to know each other a bit more in a group text or FaceTime, or just ways they can get to bond, not in the normal sense, because this year is very different. So we're going to find a way to do that too, because that's our key, in my opinion, for us to be successful. The more we come together as a bunch of guys that care about each other, the more the lacrosse takes shape, and we'll plant that flag at the top of the mountain when it's all said and done if we connect with each other. So that's what we talk about here, is investing in each other and trying to get to the top of the mountain.
It's definitely a lot of differences with this strange season, but continues for you. You have 2 weeks off before St. Thomas Aquinas on the 20th, and that's when your season really starts to hit the ground running. You get a bunch of games going once you hit the end of the month. How are you going to spend these next 2 weeks in preparation for that matchup?
Sure. Focusing on us for this week for sure. We have a lot to learn from those first 2 games we had. Very different games, but a lot to learn in Walsh and a lot to learn in Lake Erie. So we'll take this week where we get to focus on us a little bit, not get too revved up on how we have to perform, just making sure that we work on improvement. We talk about getting 1% better each day. It's something that a lot of sport teams use out there, and I think it's a very realistic goal, realistic task for us to let's get 1% better today on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so that we can just be a better version of ourselves every time we hit the field for a game. So that's what we're working on, is trying to tighten up those. We're one step later in rotation defensively. If we do see some unique offenses, how do we try to do what we want to do against unique offenses? And for our offense, it's continuing to find chemistry and stick work. It's something where we can't have enough reps of that. So shooting reps, stick work reps, and chemistry reps, because we play an offense that's less structured than most. So it's all about getting to know each other and understand he's a lefty, what does he like to do? That's a box player, he likes to do this and that. That's our big shooter, give him space. So getting to know each other more and more, because it's tougher in this environment to get to know each other and get that chemistry. So that's our focus offensively. And defensively is just, fine-tune some things that can come a little bit closer, a little bit tighter.
Well, Coach, congrats again on the win, and enjoy these couple of weeks off before you face off St. Thomas Aquinas on the 20th. Thanks for joining us on the Bobcast.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Next up here on the Bobcast, we welcome in for the first time acrobatics and tumbling head coach Katie Nunley. And, Coach, your program finally able to compete for the first time over the weekend. Your first meet against Gannon here inside Bobcat Arena. First meet in program history. It's in the books. Looking back on it, what were your takeaways from the day?
We had had a lot. It was the girls' first opportunity to actually see what an established program looks like, what we can strive to be like. So I think that was eye-opening for them because the talent on the team is there. It's just getting them to see the bigger picture, and Saturday was the bigger picture for them. But we had a ton of highs, got some things that we need to work on. So it's just going back into practice and cleaning up some stuff and making things a little bit different. Higher start values, we can definitely do that, and just better prepare us for this coming Saturday.
This is a roster, I mean, makes sense given that it's a brand new program, brand new team, that it's comprised mainly of first years on this team. Only 3 players on the roster are older than a first year. But, I mean, this is kind of like this sport is really brand new when they get here to Frostburg. They step on a campus, and, I mean, they've done aspects of acrobatics and tumbling prior to getting here. But, of course, like, you go into the meet and you go into practice and whatever, and everyone's kind of starting at the same point, essentially. So before this first meet, how much practice time did you and the rest of the team really have, like, leading up to this first meet?
Not as much as normal,
Yeah.
definitely. We had the first 2 months in the fall semester, and then we really just had 2 months this spring semester. So 4 months to get what we got prepared, and they had faced some obstacles going into this first meet, and so we did have to make some arrangements, but it just opened up their eyes to see how versatile they are as athletes and what they're actually capable of once they put their mind to it. So I appreciated them stepping up and getting out of their comfort zones, because that's not easy to do with a new
Right.
sport altogether. So I think it really boosted their confidence as well, just knowing that whenever the time gets tough, they can step in and they can make it happen.
Going into that meet and warming up and getting ready to head out to the mat and get introduced and all of that comes prior to actually going out and starting to compete. What was the feeling amongst the team as they were heading out there? Were they excited? Were they nervous? Was it kind of like a mix of both? What was the feeling?
Definitely both. I would say nerves were getting to them a little bit more, which is typical. I've seen some of them compete in their gymnastics and cheer, so I could tell how they kind of were prior to. But actually coming out on meet day, we could prep for it as much as we want in practice, but actually having the competitor there, the judges sitting out front, it's a different feeling, and you kind of almost lose your head in a sense.
Yeah.
So warm-ups was definitely a great time for them to get those little jitters out, because once we stepped out on the mat, they were cool, calm, and collected. So they definitely thrive under pressure.
I mean, at the very start, the compulsory, the first event of the night, the compulsory toss, your highest score of the night, a 9.550 in that particular heat. What did you see from your team to start off in that heat, specifically in the toss, but also just throughout that first event in the compulsory to get things started?
Compulsories are like the setting the tone for the remainder of the meet, so seeing them execute that as well as they did, that was one of the events that I wasn't so nervous about, because we did get to prep that from fall into this spring semester. So that was one of those that I knew it was going to hit. Little minor things here and there, which I could see what the judges picked up. But other than that, I think that was like, hearing that score, it just brought so much confidence and so much excitement to them, and really just helped them kind of, I think, settle and calm down for the rest of the meet, knowing that they are capable of hanging with an established program and getting those high scores, even being a first-year team and not having as much preparation and not having that upperclassmen guidance that they would have on a different team. I think that really just helped them see that they are capable of much more than what they put themselves to.
Later on in the tumbling portion, you start to get into the individual events, the passes and the final 3 heats of the tumbling event. The aerial pass and the open pass, the 2 highest scores from that particular event. You had Alexis Palmieri get an 8.775 in the aerial, and then Neva Marie Rose an 8.750 in the open. And big, big celebration, a lot of excitement after those two heats, especially Alexis's. I saw you give Alexis a big hug and cheering on with her teammates after she went through her heat. How pleased were you with those two in particular?
I was ecstatic. I couldn't really be more proud of them at that point in time. Alexis had worked really, really hard to get to that. Coming into the fall semester, she was struggling a little bit with transitioning to our mat, but she came back and she was a new human come January whenever we returned. And just seeing her progression through that little bit of time was amazing. And she kept telling me, because it was like, I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday prior to the meet, she had her ankle was kind of bothering her a little bit, and I was like, are you going to do this? Like, can you do this full and a half out of this? She was like, I promise you, I will do it. I'll do it. Just trust me. And I'm like, okay. So I trusted her, and the results were amazing. She did really well. She scored really well. She's got great technique, and same with Neva. She has so much power coming out of her tumbling, which we now need to work her in more of a connection pass with that versus it just being that. But she was a little nervous, but I could tell her excitement, like getting to be in a solo heat. So the fact that she got to go out there and how proud and excited she was when she finished, just that made me excited for her too. So
sometimes I know when I talk to Bryan Christiansen, our swimming coach, a lot of the times at the start of seasons, he'll be a little bit more focused on maybe getting back in the rhythm of meet style for him, meet style swimming, and getting times. For you, it's a little unique because, like I said at the start, this is kind of new for everyone on this team and obviously for this program, their first meet. So when you were going into this meet, was the mindset really just to kind of be like, okay, here's how this is going to work out? Like, let's get acclimated with what these meets are going to look like. Was that more of the focus going into going against Gannon on Saturday?
Yeah, we were our own biggest competition at this meet, so I wasn't stressing the start values being super high. I was just stressing, go out there, take it all in, learn how this meet format's going to run, because it's a little bit more rigorous than our practice. We have more downtime at practice versus you're always on the go at a meet. So just getting them adjusted to warming up multiple things at once and then going out to compete them, that's kind of what I wanted them to understand out of this. Not so much, we got to worry about their start values. Like, you guys need to do these hard skills, because that's not realistic for a first-year team. We will get there, but not our first meet. And I didn't want to put anything out there that could potentially lead to injury, because that's not what we need right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of just wanted them to get adjusted and used to it, because once they did, they were like, this is going so well. Like, okay, what's next? And, I had my paper over there saying who was in what event and who was counting, so they knew, like, what was next and kind of the format of the meet. So they were like, okay, I'm in this one, or I'm not in this one. I can take a minute to breathe.
Yeah.
So they enjoyed getting to actually see it. Seeing it on a video is different than actually being in it. So I think that was good for them.
Next up, you're back in Bobcat Arena Saturday night. First of 5 straight meets against MEC opponents. West Liberty is in. How can you build off of this first meet and continue the success heading into this weekend?
Definitely cleaning up some stuff, just making things a lot more sharp. We have a few areas where I think we can up our start value, only because they executed so well, and I think that sometimes doing a little bit of a harder skill makes it a little bit easier for them. If that sounds a little backwards, It kind of is, but it's weird whenever it comes to acro. Sometimes the harder skills are easier. But just getting them more comfortable going out and controlling some of our tumbling, because we did have a little bit of extra steps that we didn't need to take. So just getting those things like under our belt and just having them feel more confident with stepping out on the mat with only 3 people, or just, themselves going for tumbling. So just doing little things like that.
Well, Coach, it was great finally being able to see this program get into action, and looking forward to more of it as the weeks go on. 3 more home meets coming up, of course, this Saturday, as mentioned, with West Liberty. Appreciate you joining us on the Bobcast.
Thank you so much.
Next up here on the Bobcast, we welcome back head coach DeLane Fitzgerald as football season is upon us. Coach, coming off a great first year in the MEC, an 8-3 year for your team. Just to briefly look at last year before we look ahead here to 2021. Finished tied for second in the standings a season ago after you were picked to finish 9th to start the year. And it seems like how your team performed throughout the season, because you're now picked to finish second in the North, really puts some people on notice around this conference that you guys are a legit contender in this conference.
Yeah, 2019 seems so long ago.
It's like 15 months ago since you played.
So many things have happened. Yeah, we had a good fall. Our first fall in NCAA Division II. We had a good fall, and the young men played hard. The conference coaches helped us by picking us 9th in the conference because it served as a motivational factor for our players. We're used to winning 10 games a year around here, and our guys expected to win 10 again. Did a nice job. Finishing second in the conference in your first year is pretty remarkable. Good for those young men. Hey, happy to be playing football again. Football in March. Football games in March. Didn't never cross my mind that I was ever going to be a part of something like this.
You have the challenge this year of for the second consecutive year needing to find a new quarterback. Of course, after Connor Cox left a couple years ago, Will Brunson comes in, the transfer from Albany. He throws for over 2,000 yards and 18 touchdowns last season. Now you have to find a new signal caller. What's the quarterback situation looking like as you head into the season?
Yeah, Connor was a great one. Best ever play here. Will came in last year and did a nice job of bridging the gap from D3 to D2. You can do that when you've been playing FCS football. You've been playing 1AA football and you drop down, you can do that. Will's a coach's kid and did a nice job for us as the quarterback in 2019. Will is now on our staff as a graduate assistant and doing a nice job working with our offensive line. He's been a skill guy all of his life, and we've put him with the Mules. So he's with the big boys learning how that part of the football game works and doing a nice job. Will's going to be a good coach in the future. You bring up the quarterback position. Everybody. Quarterbacks get way too much credit when you're good, and they get way too much credit when you're bad too. You get too much of the blame, I should say. Graham Walker and Chad Palmer have been in a competition for that starting spot. That they were in couple of weeks of fall practice we had. They've competed all this spring. It's still neck and neck. We like both young men. They both do a handful to half a dozen good things, and then there's a couple things we still have to improve upon with that position, but they both played well and played really, really hard. The 2 freshmen along with Sean Bliss have done a nice job also, but the 2 freshmen and Isaiah Lester and Kasey Barnes to go along with Sean Bliss have done a nice job also. We're happy with the quarterback position and excited about its future.
Lots of depth there. Of course, we saw Chad a little bit last season late in some games and kind of more of a mobile quarterback at what he brings to the table. And, of course, Graham getting the red shirt last season. But let's flip to the defense here real quick. Top defense in the conference last year, allowing just over 19 points per game. That was best in the MEC. But some losses on that front at the linebacker spot. Wayne Palmer and Matt Meyer, you lose them. In the secondary, you lose Vinny Persichetti and Mike Bell. Those are 4 of your top 5 in tackles from last season have now moved on from the program. What reinforcements are stepping in this year to fill those holes on the defense?
Yeah, we're really good up front. We returned all of the defensive ends from last year, and Robert Horsey's back at nose guard and backed up by Ryan Crane, and they do a nice job there. And at 3 technique, Leonard Scott's come on. Now, Leonard's still only about half the player that he could possibly become, because if he turns it on the next couple of years, going to be an NFL prospect, but he's turned it on at the 3 technique. We brought in a transfer at the 3 technique position, and he's doing a nice job. And then Jacob Beiser has done a nice job for us at that 3 technique position so far. But back on those defensive ends, we have the best group of defensive ends in the conference. Zach Strand walks in the weight room, squats 700 pounds just like it's his job, and then Carl, to make sure that Zach doesn't outdo him, Carl squats 700 pounds too. But the way they lift and how fast they are is really, really impressive. And that, all that being said, there's a whole bunch of plays when Trevor Booker's as good or better than both of them at defensive end, and then you throw Luke Freeman in there, and Luke Freeman's a real talented young man at the defensive end position. But those four, whew, like to be able to keep them for the rest of my life, sign them to a lifetime contract. win a lot of games when you're that good up front. At the linebacker position, Dylan Colpin's done a nice job at the mic for us, and he's going to be a good player going forward. Mike Morgan has played a lot the last couple of years, and he's back at the outside backer position. And then Jake Brochard is back. Jake Brochard is back for his redshirt senior year, and he's doing a really nice job. And I always smile. I feel like I'm a part of the Brochard family. There's been a Brochard playing here every year that I've been coaching. So really happy about that. And we had his brother before Jake. We had Graham, and now we've got Jake, and just like being around that family, and happy to have them with us. We're good at the linebacker position. At DB, Stacey Watts is back for his third year starting, and he's a good football player and tough, hard-nosed, does a nice job. Kyan Loney played some last year, and he's a starter at corner now and does a nice job. And then the one that's come on and made some strides, and we're proud of him, and it's Octavius Strong. Octavius is doing a nice job at that corner position, and we're happy with that. We go to the safety position, and the safety position right now is Avery's there for the fourth year in a row, but Avery Thurman's at the safety position and good football player. And then Zach Willett has made a lot of strides and doing some good things at that other safety position. Mitchell West has come on a little bit, and he's showing some stuff there. And there's a couple other players in there competing. And then we have a transfer that we really like at that safety position, and we'll get to see him sometime this week.
Yeah, I remember seeing Zach Willett near the end of that Fairmont State game a season ago, having to fill in at safety late, and that come from behind victory early in the season. But you brought up Zach and Carl, and I want to talk about them because you took the words right out of my mouth. I think they're the best edge rush duo in this conference. When you look at what they did last season, 19.5 sacks between the two of them. Igwe led the MEC with 11, 34.5 combined tackles for loss. They are a menace when it comes to getting into the backfield, getting to the quarterback, getting to just pressuring the offensive line and getting into the backfield. How have they improved? You talk about them getting in the weight room. How have they improved their own game, and what do they do working off of each other to make each other better football players?
Yeah, when we're having this conversation, you can't leave out Trevor Booker. Matt Trevor may start, so Trevor may be the starter for the next 2 seasons. Trevor's done a great job and really, really come on as a senior. Here's what the three of them do. They push each other. So they push each other, and they push all the guys around them. Their mental and physical toughness are through the roof now, through the roof. And I think Zach's got plans to play professionally when he's done here, and he'll have an opportunity to do that. And then he's got some military plans. And I sit and smile now. Yeah, that young man protecting our freedoms and leading our country, yeah, it makes you sleep a little better at night.
We'll shift back to the offense here and the receiving core, and I mean, pretty much everyone's back. Lincoln Akubu is back. Terrell Brown is back. They both had over 600 yards receiving a year ago. You welcome back Malik Morris, who had 1,000 yards prior to his red shirt a season ago. I mean, pretty much whoever you decide to put at quarterback this season, they're going to have a ton of weapons at their disposal in the passing game.
We should be lights out in the pass game. We should be. And as I'm sitting here speaking to you, that group's underachieved. Those 5 seniors haven't had they weren't lights out in the fall, and they haven't been lights out this spring. And you're hoping they find it again, because you don't want people to leave your football program, especially wide receivers, and you look back and think his best season was his freshman year, his best season was his sophomore year. But there's been some disappointment at that wide receiver position so far, and not just from an effort standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint, and we expect more there. If our quarterbacks make the right read and hit what they're throwing at, we have a chance to be really, really successful. But we've got to get more out of our pass game right now.
What about the running game? And that, of course, includes up front with the offensive line. Losing a couple from last year, you lose Wade Olson, you lose Jason Money as well. But I think that offensive line, at least to me, surprised a little bit because there was some youth on that line. You had Gottlieb by EJ at the left tackle position, and getting that push up front to allow the running game, which last year was led by Gavin Lavatt, to have a ton of success last season. I think that was really the identity of your offense, having to shift from Connor to Will and go with more of a run-heavy game. That offensive line was a huge part of that.
Yeah, Gottlieb's back. You pronounce his name a lot better than I do. But Gotti's back. He's being challenged by Bennett Commander at that left tackle position. So they're both probably going to split time. They're two good-looking, really athletic young men. We go to left tackle, and Greg Gaines and Kurt Hott are playing there, and play. This is the best ball that Greg's played so far. Greg has the size and strength and how do you say this, gray matter. He's a smart young man. He has all the intangibles to be really good at this game. Michael Hudron has really done a nice job at the center position for us, and we knew he would. We recruited him out of Good Counsel High School, but he stepped into that center position, done a nice job there, and him and Michael Chambers are rotating there. And then at right guard, Andrew Griffith is holding that spot down for the third straight year, and we've got some other younger players that are doing a nice job in there behind him, but Andrew's playing well. And then at right tackle, Brandon Dillard's doing a nice job, and it's Brandon Dillard and Riley Pettit that are rotating there. But Brandon's got a chance. Brandon's got a chance to be the lightest and the best offensive lineman in the country. I said country, in the conference. But he is as good as a 260-pound right tackle can possibly be, and he seems like he's 7'6", 250, because he just looks so long and skinny. But I guess Brandon's probably about 6'3.5", 6'4", about 260, 265, doing a nice job at that right tackle position. But you're right, they're good football players. They're good football players, and even better than that, outside of Andrew, they're really young. So they're all freshmen, sophomores. The future's bright for our running backs. Matt, maybe me and you line up at running back in the next couple of years and we could rush for the century mark in a game.
Hey, with the way they're blocking last year, I mean, I don't know if I got the wheels for it, or the ball security, but I mean, nothing. A little bit of coaching couldn't, rectify a little bit. We'll see.
I tell the kids all the time, the adrenaline would get me through one quarter. So it's just a matter of what I can get done in one quarter. But I learned a long time ago now, if the running back goes 5 yards before anybody touches him, he's getting ready to have a lot of success now. Yeah, when you're +5 on the carry before you even get to a defender, you're going to have some success. Lot of competition at that running back spot. A lot of competition back there. Malcolm Facey's doing a nice job. Evan Branch has stepped in, and we knew Evan Branch was going to be change of pace back. But what we've learned is that he can do a little bit of everything. Got a chance to be special. You're talking about a kid that ran in the 10s and 100 meters in the Tidewater area, Virginia, in high school, and a good kid, good student, but he's going to be a good player here. Isaiah Horn, as a senior, is going to get some carries and do some nice things there. And then I refuse to announce the names of the transfers. Let people figure it out once they have to start playing us. We've got a transfer tailback that's got a chance to have 2 special years.
What do you, when you look at this team, and we've kind of touched on each part of the offense and the defense here, what do you want the identity of this team to be? Because last year, leading defense in the conference, ground and pound on the offense, throw it every now and then. But when you look at what you want this team to be, what do you want your team to really specialize in? What do you want the identity of this team to really be?
Yeah, you say this year.
Or just all the time, I guess.
In college athletics and in athletics in general, if you're worried about your identity each year, you're going to be bad. You're not going to be very good. Our program has an identity, and this thing started in 2014, and then we really caught fire in 15 and 16 with those guys. But our identity is our stick-to-itiveness is better than everybody else we play. We're going to keep coming for 3 hours, and we're going to keep coming, and we're going to keep coming. And when the breaks go against us, we're going to continue to play hard. When it's going well for us and we're getting all the breaks, we're going to continue to play hard. But just our mental and physical toughness is what our football program is known for, and what it's going to continue to be known for. We have young men in this football program that come from great families and great parents, depending upon which kid you're talking about. But the moms and the dads and the grandparents and the aunts and uncles have done a great job of raising these young men. And it really doesn't matter what happens to us throughout the year and throughout a game and stuff. We just keep coming at you. And anytime our players get a chance to play football, Matt, they're so excited to play football that it's contagious for a coaching staff. Keeps me younger than I really am. I could jump up on the soapbox and lecture you this. You think of all the bad things that have happened to these young men in the last 13 months with this pandemic and all our players have done is exactly what they were asked to do at 100 miles an hour on and off the field. We've had virtually no COVID cases, and our kids have practiced it and lifted and went to study hall and went to class and been as good as they can possibly be, which brings me to my last point. Our program goal is just to be our best selves, be as good as you can possibly be.
And an interesting, of course, format to this season, a shortened season, only 5 games, having to play it in March and April, which you said off the top. No one really thought we'd be in this situation, having to play spring football, competing for an MEC title, but here we are. What excites you when you look at this roster and you speak glowingly about the guys and the youth and the depth in this program? What excites you about what this team can do this year?
I'm excited about this week and this weekend, and excited about our future. What excites me, it excites any educator and any coach to work with good people and to work with kids that care about what you're doing. So, and I'm no different than the English or the math teacher here at the university. When the math professors here get in the classroom and they got a bunch of kids in the classroom that really like math and want to get better at math, it excites them and rejuvenates them. That's the way I feel about our football players here. Our football players here love football. It's one of the requirements when we're recruiting them. We vet the head coach and we vet the guidance counselor and we vet the kids, English and math teachers and all that. You know, what's he love? What's he really love to do? When the high school English teacher said, well, his first love is football. Well, we know he's got a chance to fit into our program. Yeah, the youth excites me. So playing football excites me. Our level of toughness, Matt, is going to excite everybody that gets to see us play.
Coach, I'm really excited to see this team get back out on the field. It's been a long time since we've seen them, since November 16th, 2019, last time we saw this team take the field for an official game. Can't wait to watch you and the rest of the group play this season. Coach, thanks for joining us on the Bobcast.
Thank you for having me.
Next up here on the Bobcast is women's soccer, and I'm here with head coach Bryan Parker, coming off a great win for your team on Friday, a 1-0 win over West Virginia Wesleyan, a team that was picked to win this Central Division and one of the top teams in the conference last season. But you played well in that one. You host AB on Friday. That's coming up this week. But just overall from the match on Friday, had a bit of a slow start, but it seemed around the 15 or 20-minute mark, the girls really started to pick things up and started to dominate possession. What did you take away from that match on Friday?
Well, thanks for having me. Of course, it feels like we've taken a pretty good step forward, you know, a noticeable sort of next footprint on our journey this spring and this unusual season. So it feels great. And, you know, the preseason stuff, I mean, we're talking about 16 months ago in some cases, what teams look like. And so I don't put a lot of credence in that. But, of course, we were not good at West Virginia Wesleyan in 19. And certainly a memory that sticks to a lot of our returning players and one that, you know, made me nervous about their quality and athleticism for sure going into the game. But, you know, we're different. We've grown. We had a terrific fall, and so it's not a surprise to me. But, yeah, it was as you said, a frantic start. I think probably a combination of nerves and obviously their athleticism and pressure. We really grew into the match and had a great start to the second half, and I think it was a proper result. It was a good, like I said, a good chapter.
It seemed like as the night went on, I mean, you guys held Wesleyan to just one shot the entire match, and credit for that goes to that back four on the defense: Abby Dennis, Alexis Dell, Mackenzie Fulch, and then stepping in at that fourth slot that was held by Riley Learn last year was Mina Del Borello, who also played very well on Friday. What did you see from those back four on Friday night that allowed you to kind of limit possession for the opponents?
Well, you know, I guess you would always say, no matter how nervous you are, no matter what the conditions are, you can always be a good defensive team, and sometimes
Defense travels. That's what they say.
yeah, and so of course, whenever we feel nervous or just feel uncomfortable or whatever it may be, weather conditions, whatever, if something's just not right, doesn't feel good for you, put a hard tackle in. Go win a high ball. You can always get the ball back and play defense. It's a little less performance pressure, obviously, not quite as technically demanding, to just be organized and communicate and get in the way of things, and so. We always like to think that that'll be the most consistent part of our team, and having experience back there is a massive plus. It's unusual that we have this young midfield right in front of a experienced back line, but the mix has been terrific, and no question that Fulch is playing at a very high level as a center back. So is Abby Dennis. All four of the backs are some of our fittest, just most durable kind of players, and so it kind of works out that way on a lot of teams, I'm sure, but the commitment they've made to the program and to themselves physically is really showing.
As far as the attack went, you guys built a lot of chances, ended up with 14 shots for the game, but plenty of chances as well. And it seemed like as the game wore on, it was only a matter of time. I think especially once the second 45 minutes began, that it seemed like it was inevitable that you were eventually going to find the back of the net. Funny that it ends up coming on a penalty kick from Audra Curtin, but the offense really seemed like as the game wore on, as they got a little more settled in, they started to click a little bit more, get possession, and find some more chances.
Well, I'm glad you felt that way because I know you were there, obviously. I don't like to think anything's inevitable in soccer. We've been way better and not scored and been worse and scored in games, of course. So you never expect things. Well, you do always expect good things to happen,
right,
but you never are surprised when it doesn't. And the fact that it came from a PK, it was tough to not call that, I think, when Tony got in the box and got fouled. But and Audra's, just a calm upper-class forward who's just going to finish a lot, I think, this year. So, yeah, it did feel like, were we deserving, I guess, in terms of the run of play and certainly how we started the second half, it felt like we would probably cash in. But, in the back of your mind, you're, after 15, 20 minutes, you're kind of planning for the overtime and thinking about managing minutes and subbing, and we were certainly doing that. And then suddenly it came, we got into sort of protect the lead mode with probably 10, 12 minutes to go. So I think we managed the game overall pretty well, and I do feel like it was, like I said, 1-0 is probably a fair result. I think the statistics, it was a closer game than that shot count certainly indicated, because they are big, strong, athletic kids, and we did not have athletically we did not match up well with them in several positions for sure, and we're definitely took a while to adjust to that. But I'm happy how we adjusted and managed that second half for sure.
Lexi Pate has been great so far this year. I mean, only a couple matches in, but the two of us talked shortly before the match on Friday about kind of her journey here. She played club soccer at Towson, and now she's here, and clearly a very skilled attacker for your team. And you've plugged her in right up front with Audra Curtin after losing a player like Brookshire last season. To be able to put in a player like Lexi Pate and see the results that she's been able to put out there so far this year, how good of a sign has that been for you as a coach?
Well, she fills a niche, obviously a vacancy you might say that we had in our lineup, of course, but I think she would do that for lots of teams.
Yeah.
She's an elite athlete. I don't think you can argue with that. She's capable of playing at a very high level. The fact that she was kind of away from super competitive soccer for a time there during the ACL rehab and her experience at Towson, the fact that she's responded very well in our environment, I think it's just awesome. I'm happy for her, and of course happy that she's got a nice vertical ability. She's athletic. She can run. She's going to stretch teams out. She's going to get some attention. I was joking with her after the game. It's everyone's watching all these games. She's only going to get more difficult because she's going to draw better and better defenders, and so we're going to have to start getting a little creative, with her and not hiding her, but kind of mixing it up. And that's just the fun part of being in a conference where obviously the technology allows us to scout pretty easily, but also the fact that we're going to play everyone twice. She'll stop surprising people probably this week.
This was a Wesleyan team. I said off the top that won the MEC 2 years ago. They were a very skilled team last year. They had a stretch of almost a month where they didn't concede a goal. But they lost 3 of their top 5 scorers. They lost their starting goalkeeper. But, I mean, aside from that, still a very skilled team, as I'm sure you know. And I know you don't want to put stock in it, but I like to put stock in the preseason polls, kind of what they asked me to do. So, they were picked to win the Central. You were picked right behind them. But it seemed like you guys came out and asserted yourselves as the team that may have gotten, I don't want to say snubbed, but played, I guess, kind of with a chip on your shoulder going into that match, considering how you matched up against them in 2019 and really for the vast majority of the night handled them pretty well. What allowed you overall to have that kind of success against them for the majority part of the night?
So it's funny, as a coach, you get to pick and choose when to call on that history and tradition and use it to your advantage. There's plenty of examples where we're not going to touch what happened last year, and there's obviously other times when we're going to tap into it. And this was one of those cases where I just think we underperformed in that game down there, and it was a memory that was worthy of invoking for some of our returning players. But we're a completely different team.
Yeah,
they're obviously a completely different team. I think in this COVID year, you don't know what you're going to get, and they did not play in that first week. We didn't have any film. They have some new players I actually am familiar with that obviously are good. But again, you just can't. The scouting has such low value this early on. So I'm happy, of course, that we kind of have put an imprint on the division, and put out some good performances, and we feel good about the progress we're making. But I would not take a thing for granted about their performance when we go back down there, and I'm sure that return game is going to be a bit different and a bit more of a challenge. And I guess we just look forward to that. And you have to make your own tradition every year, so to speak, and now we're the new kids on the block. I could obviously easily admit that we underperformed in that first season in the MEC, and kind of felt like we have a little something to prove in this season, our next season, whenever we obviously got a chance to play it, for sure. So, we're putting a flag down, so to speak, and we'll see how it goes.
2 matches in, you've looked pretty good for these 2 matches so far, but what has impressed you the most about these girls so far this year, and what's maybe something that has caught your eye that maybe needs a little tweaking heading into this upcoming week and moving forward throughout the rest of this season?
Well, I think in terms of the challenge we faced is it's a very unusual situation where you bring in a high number of pretty high number of good caliber players, but only kind of focused on one area of the field. We had those senior center mids that obviously we knew we had to replace, and so we just have this cluster of young players really dominating the midfield right now. And so, how composed will they be? How will they manage their nerves? How useful will they be in the system and kind of remembering things and working with the other players? And the answer obviously has been positive, has been great. These girls we're recruiting have all been team captains, have all been all-county, all-state players, and they've all played big, important club matches. And in some cases, of course, they know each other and have experience in little groups when they come from, the same clubs and same areas. And so I think we're benefiting from a little bit of that as well. But that integration of those new players was a big question we've had to answer, and I think it's going great so far. Obviously, the benefit of having the 8-week fall sort of preseason almost. We felt like we had an 8-week fall preseason. And so these girls are not new to each other, even though it's our first competitive go-around here, our second game, really representing the school in an intercollegiate competition. I feel like our team we know each other well, and I feel like that integration of those new players has been wonderful. And obviously Tony and Katie just showed up a few weeks ago,
right.
And I think they fit in great.
Now, that's interesting you bring that up because you bring these new players in, you get these new faces, and they have that little part of the preseason before in a normal year to hit the ground running at the beginning of September. You don't get a ton of, face-to-face time or play out on the pitch to kind of get acclimated with each other. And it's interesting to hear how, obviously none of this is an ideal situation with everything with COVID, but it's interesting still to hear about how getting this extended amount of time, getting the fall to kind of get acclimated more with each other has been a benefit for you guys.
So it's been fun to talk to spring sports coaches
Yes.
and kind of compare their routine to ours, because we're now kind of experiencing their routine. And I always thought it's kind of fun to come in early. You have a camp. There's no one here. You have a whole week to do team building and really train your team. But it is 10-day preseason and maybe 14-day preseason, and we're competing and we're right out of the gate. And so it might have been much more difficult for us to maybe be more competitive earlier in the fall had we done that regular process. So now we're kind of doing what the spring sports guys do, and those coaches get to have this nice long fall preseason and just play scrimmages, but they get to really know their teams and plug in some things that they might want to use. When we had our meeting to schedule for the spring, everyone wants to run out and train all the time. I'm like, what are you guys going to do with 5 weeks of preseason? I've never had this. Give us 2-3 weeks and we'll be ready. So I felt like we had, that jump start we had in the fall is completely unusual. Obviously, I don't envy spring sports coaches with the weather. How we play baseball and softball in this whole country in February and March is still baffling to me. Thank God the sun's out. We're having a great week. And the other thing is the once-a-week schedule. And maybe we'll dive into that at some point. But, in soccer, it's not a traditional thing. We are a kind of a twice-a-week sport like some others. So now we've got these end-of-the-week games, more recovery time, more rest time, integrate our strength and conditioning program much more fully. So I like it so far. It gives us a chance to really field our best team every week, as opposed to wondering who can be healthy by Wednesday, So I like that a lot so far, and knock on wood, we've been pretty healthy, so I think that's helpful.
Well, that has been a difference in being able to stay consistent with that. But you have a match with AB on the schedule for this week, another home match, and you're off to a great start at 2-0. How do you continue to build off of this good start and continue the success going down the rest of the season?
So it's kind of fun, to have these problems, right?
Yes.
And that is, of course, the idea of not taking anything for granted and really kind of earning your place every week. And, the internal competition on the team is as high as it's ever been. We have a really deep team and can play several, a good handful of players. I think we played 18 and then 16 players in the first 2 games. So that's not unusual, but, it's comfortable for us to have a good amount of depth on the team. So just, keeping that fire lit, and just making sure we don't take anything for granted. Obviously, people know we're coming now. Everyone's got 2 games worth of video. I'm sure AB, we haven't seen AB, because of the current situation we're in the conference. So who knows what they have? Anybody could have 10 new players and surprise you. So we're not going to take anything for granted and, just look forward to playing at home another weekend.
Well, Coach, congrats on the win. Great start for the girls this season, and looking forward to some more soccer this week. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it should be fun. Sun is out.
Yes,
it's
it is.
It's going to be a great week.
It's going to be 60s later this week, too.
That's the rumor. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next up on the Bobcast, we head to talk about the men's and women's swimming team here, and I'm here with Bryan Christiansen, the head coach. Coach, a victory for the men's side over West Virginia Wesleyan in the final meet of the regular season here at Bobcat Natatorium. The women falling to the visiting Bobcats. Battle of the Bobcats in the pool there.
It's so irritating in this new conference that there's 2 FSUs.
There is.
And 2 Bobcats, and we're definitely we're the new cats on the block.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we can say we're the original true Bobcats, but I think we are. It should go to the winner.
It's definitely tough when you're broadcasting it and you say something about the Bobcats and you're like, wait a minute. They're both the Bobcats. I have to clarify myself here. But
I think we should be like the CFL, the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Ottawa Roughriders. Which I think Saskatchewan. Oh, jeez.
Ottawa is now the Red Blacks.
Is that right?
Yes. I don't know how long ago they changed that, and I don't know why that just came to me right now.
Huh.
I'm not a big CFL guy, but
me either. I remember they but one of them, I think Ottawa, there was Rough Riders, as in like rough space riders, and I think Saskatchewan was one word, Rough Riders. So I think we should make West Virginia be the Bob Space Cats.
I like that.
Yeah.
That should propose that.
I will talk to Reed Amos about that.
Get cracking on that once your season, so that'll keep you occupied.
I'll just petition another school to change their mascot because they.
Well, how do you change the 2 FSUs though? Maybe Fairmont State becomes the University of Fairmont State, USF or UFS.
Yeah, UFS.
UFS. UFS.
I do want them to become UFs.
Okay. So
University of Fairmont State. That's such an awkward. Sorry, Fairmont. I like Fairmont. Like,
no,
they're
great
good,
school.
They're a good.
They just won the Mountain Easton basketball
They have a good.
the other day.
I like their staff out there. We had a fun time swimming them, but I definitely want them to become UFs.
I'll let you handle that. But there was a meet on Saturday.
There was.
I don't know if you heard.
Yeah.
There was a meet. The men's side win. The women's side falling in that meet. Just wanted to hear your overall takeaways from Saturday's meet.
Yeah. Well, let me say, first, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Matt. I was gonna say this. It was almost light out this morning when I woke up I left the house at 5:45 for morning practice. There was like a sliver, and I think it's kind of nice. It's obviously this unprecedented, us swimming in March, and every day getting a little bit warmer, getting a little brighter. It's kind of nice.
I think it's gonna be 60s later this week.
I know it's gonna be it's good stuff. So this was one of the best meets I think I've ever coached as a coach in my 13-year career. I gotta say, I mean, it was like I was telling you, we set 11 short course meters records. I always want to remind the viewers at home, short course meters, like a 2:14, 200 IM is not that impressive in yards, but that's a legit meter swim for sure. And it was just like all day. I don't know what we beat them up last week. They were fired up. I don't know if it was just senior day or they just kind of wanted to, leave off on a good note. I mean, to me, it was kind of like us being unleashed. For a lot of these kids, we knew we brought in, a pretty good freshman class. Really, I might consider our first real true Division II recruiting class, just because. Technically, our first D2 class, I started this job in October, which is like incredibly late in the recruiting season, and we got some good people for sure that are now sophomores. But I really consider this my first kind of full cycle of people, and so we knew that they were good. But it's kind of like we signed these people like November of 2019. It's been like 16 months, kind of waiting for this to happen. We signed people like Andy Creelman, who I knew could rewrite a record board on Butterfly, but it's been I didn't know how much of a release it was going to be like, oh yeah, this is what we were supposed to be having all year. And it was fun. That was a fun meet, and I think we just rode that energy, and I was blown away. It was a spectacular time.
12 wins on the men's side, and you talked about all the great times you swam, of course. The 400-meter medley relay broke the school record at 4:05:27. That was Giuseppetti, Jacob Tantala, Andy Creelman, who you just talked about, and Noah Loper. Those last two new faces to this program, who I want to talk about them a little bit later with how great they've been this year. But just an impressive showing to kind of get going. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did. But impressive to start off the meet in such a great fashion for that quartet.
And that is so perfect to have like two seniors and two freshmen.
Yes.
That's a nice passing of the torch, especially a guy like Jacob who came in as a transfer. He's been here for 2 years, and he's just been working his butt off, and to get his name on the board is like a really special thing. I was so happy, and proud of him. I just think it's amazing that, we had Christian March in 2018 go to nationals and kind of rewrite the record board in breaststroke, and to have a non-Christian March breaststroker on any team record is such a testament to how hard this team works and what we're trying to achieve. So it was really fun
to talk about Noah. And I mean, I feel like each time I've had you on, at least when it's been the two of us on the Bobcast, I want to talk about Noah Loper because he's doing something every meet. 3 individual wins on Saturday. He just continues to perform well. I remember he stood out in the meet I broadcasted the start of the year against Salem, because the first time he went in the pool, he's flying right down and getting his first win in his first event. But he looks like him, along with Andy Creelman, who a couple weeks ago got a co-MEC Swimmer of the Week honor. They, in particular, look to have bright futures here because with the success they've had so early on.
Yeah, I think so. And Andy leading off our 200 free relay was also, I think it was like 500ths off our 50 record. So it was almost. I mean, we could have easily had 13 records today. Anthony Giuseppetti also. I'm sure we'll talk about him. The 100 free, he was 900ths off.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had some people real close. But yeah, Noah, I was kind of telling him I feel like he could break any record he wants to. Like if he worked, he could just pick what he wants to work on, and he could do anything he wants. It's gonna be tough at conference because we gotta kind of figure out where he's gonna be, just because I think he can be really good at anything, and he's a kid who just works his butt off. He doesn't know the meaning of the word slow, and he just every single set he's giving it his all, and you see it. You see the after effects, and it's been really, really fun to watch.
I want to talk about the women's side because that 200 free relay team of Liz Perry, Summer Mastandria, Francesca Cravassera, and Aubrey Morris, they've just been dynamite this season.
Yeah.
It seems like it's been all but one meet. It was the Notre Dame meet was the only time that they did not win the 200 free relay. What have you seen from them, and how impressive have they been in your eyes this season?
I know, and they were second off our record.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I want them to get that so bad.
Yeah.
It was definitely. I mean, I'll say this: the women getting records on the women's side is really hard.
Yeah.
Like Macy Nitchie a few years ago, just rewrote a ton, especially on the freestyle, and talking about like Daisy DeMonte a couple years ago, Maddie Weinberger, some people who were getting like B cuts, and pretty close to going nationals with some of these people. It was tough. Us being close at all is amazing, and I think that foursome is really great. I've been so impressed. I think that's another thing you talk about. We talk about Noah every week, and I feel like every week I'm like, hey, in that last relay, our women they still brought it.
Yeah.
And that's been such a huge thing for us, that they've just raced really hard. I was really excited watching them finish up. I think Liz has struggled a little bit. I think I'm seeing her come together. Like in that 50, and then we time trial the 50 butterfly, which she did the fastest time in Frostburg history in that time trial 50 fly. Watching her kind of come together was really, really rewarding, and that was fun to watch too.
You brought up Anthony Giuseppetti earlier. Good performance for him, right ahead of a couple weeks, I guess, removed from the MEC Championships in a few weeks at the end of the month. 2 individual wins for him, the 100 and 200 free. And you mentioned senior day as well, and the last time he'll get to swim in a meet here at Bobcat Natatorium. What did you see, I guess, first from Anthony, and then when you look at the rest of the seniors and on both sides and how they performed in their final home meet, what were your takeaways from those?
Yeah, Anthony, I didn't know he could have a better meet than he did last year. His final meet when he set, I think he did the backstroke the same way, where he set the backstroke record leading off a relay, and then he led off the 800 free relay in a 157, which is crazy fast. Again, short course meters for people out there. And then on the way to getting our 8 free relay record. So, he set like 3 individual records. Well, I guess it's now kind of like 14 months ago at our last meet last year. So it's kind of like, ooh, that's a lot going out your junior year last year. Look, can he top it his senior year? And it came pretty close.
Yeah.
Setting a bunch of long standing records. Those medley relays, they've been around for 21 years. Part of that, I think he now has all of Kelly Ryan's records. Kelly Ryan was just a great backstroker for us. He held all the backstroke records for like 20 years. Really did a great job, kind of around the turn of the century. And then now Anthony, he has worked his butt off to try to get all of them. And they met. They swum in the alumni meet.
Oh yeah. 2
years ago against each other. I think Anthony got him, but it was close. It was like still close. Kelly's like 20 years older than him.
Yeah.
It was still that was a fun race to watch. Kind of these two who I think will be, pretty well-known people in Frostburg history. And getting that, I know, is a big thing that he had wanted, and that was really fun. So we kind of talked about Jacob a little bit, getting in some relays, but he also got second. I know that their breaststroke had been close to Jacob. Their breaststroke had been like a 106.9. Mm-hmm. Jacob went at 107.0 like last week, and so I put them right next to each other. I put Noah in the event. So there's a little added insurance, but I was like, hey, Jacob, you can try to go 1-2, and he ended up getting second, and that was awesome to watch. By like not close, and I was like, wow, we are fired up. He was almost going his yards time in meters, like more than he did just a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
that was really fun. And then Brady Peterson had a really nice showing in the 50 free, and he's been our flyer for a long time. Ended up getting a touch out in the butterfly, which was pretty critical. And he's just been a guy who's just been so reliable over the years, as getting in there and scoring points when we need him. And we've done weird things with him. Put him in some breaststroke this year that he's wanted to try out a little bit, and that was really fun to watch too. And then Sarah and Megan on the women's side. Megan had a really good 800. She was like right on the pace she'd been at practice. It was just like a well thought out swim, and then she turned around and had a really good IM for us, which she's been. Yeah, she's in the fruit position. She's like our IMer / like a breaststroker, really a distance swimmer. Mm-hmm. And she had a really good meet. I mean, I think that she's, in the 3 years I've been with her, she's up and down a little bit. When she's on, and it's so rewarding when, she knows she has a good race, and she had a good one for sure. And then Sarah, she doubled up a lot. She was asked to be in the 800 and the 100 back, which are pretty close together. And I was like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah." So she was able to do that. Did a little backstroke, the 200 back as well, and just did some really good times for her. She also came in. She was edging them out a little bit, edging some of their B and C swimmers out, which was like nice to see her fired up and going.
You bookend your regular season with home meets. Mentioned how you started the year back in January against Salem, and then wrapping up back at home on Saturday. How welcome was it to finally get back here, not have to get on the bus, drive however many hours to go to another road meet within the conference? How nice was it to just kind of settle in and relax this week leading up to this meet and be able to swim at home for the first time in about a month and a half?
I feel like any swim coach out there can maybe echo this sentiment. I never feel relaxed at a home meet. I would much rather go away.
Really?
Like when we're setting up, we got to put the pads in, make sure everything works, and set up our timing system. And West Virginia Wesleyan, we're trying to make sure they had like a place to eat and locker rooms, and especially now we're trying to make sure everyone has their own locker rooms and everything's sanitized. I don't know if this is the way.
It's a lot, yeah.
I don't know if this is the way you were trying to lead the question, but like I would much rather.
No, but it's interesting.
I would much rather any day just I just want to show up,
just hang out,
tell me where to go, swim in yards. Like I would rather do all away meets. But yeah, there's good and bad things. When we're away, we have to like coordinate our food, which has also kind of been a hurdle this year, and certainly waking up early and hopping on a bus, I think sometimes can like settle us. Actually, we just kind of like get into the rhythm of that. I mean, it's nice waking up kind of a little later and just being able to like kind of stroll down here casually. I think for the kids, I'm sure they enjoy home meets a lot more. They can. I don't know if they know the coaching side of things, but I would always rather be away. The kids probably enjoyed it. I think there is a little bit difference, some of us defending our home turf and having a good time with that.
So a little over 3 weeks until the GMAC MEC Championships, from the 30th of March till April 2nd. Couple weeks to get ready for that. what's the plan really over this pretty much the entire month you have to gear up to head up to Canton and compete in that?
Well, it's interesting, I mean, when we try to enter our rest period and taper a little bit, I mean, my thought is always like, if the kids are looking hurt, like if they're looking beat up, rest them a little bit more, and if they're looking like fast and have a lot of energy, try to push them a little harder and beat them up a little bit more and find that balance. We are real beat up. They are complaining and they're hurting and they're sore for sure. But we're swimming fast. So I don't know. I think what we'll do is I really put a lot of thought about it this weekend. I think we're going to try to lighten up a little bit this week. We're going to drop out a lot of our kick. I think we're going to let our legs kind of rest and come back. And, starting next week for sure, I think we'll really ease off the throttle and let these kids feel good. And, I think swimming fast is always a good thing. I think we are, like, ready to turn some heads in this conference. I feel like we're rated, like, the men rated, like, 5th in the preseason poll, and the women rated, like, 6th or something.
I think so, yep.
Some of that's because there's just more women's teams, and UNC Pembroke is, like, ridiculous. And but they're gonna leave the conference after this year anyway. So, I think we're so underrated. I think we're fearsome. Like if we swim at all with the energy that we had today, like we're gonna have an outstanding conference. And so our goal is just keep that high spirit and positivity going for the next couple of weeks.
I like the approach. Just who knows? We'll see how the next few weeks come as far as rest or whatever it may be.
I guess to reassure the people out there, I do have a plan.
Oh, I'm sure. No. I'm sure you do.
It's just there's a little flexibility every day, which I think is really important this year, especially. I'm trying not to look too far ahead. Just
right.
Kind of saying, what do we need every day, right? Do we need more this day? Do we need less this day? And then I kind of have my scenarios in my head. And I guess what makes me rest easy is I was telling our kids this the other week, like the work is already done. Like kids worry about taper. I'm like, listen, if you've done the work all year, you got nothing to worry about. You're gonna be fine, right? We're gonna be fast, and I think we have. I think we've really, to me, the hard part is done, and now it's just kind of letting it happen and letting those good swims roll.
Well, it was great to see the teams back in the pool here this past weekend. Really looking forward to those championships at the end of the month and talking to you again at the conclusion of those and wrapping up your season. A different season for sure. With you mentioned it's take it day by day. It's kind of hard to look forward with anything right now with all the kind of, I guess, unknowns with everything with COVID and whatnot. But looking forward to seeing you guys get back in action the end of the month, and appreciate you as always joining us on the Bobcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me in this fine establishment. And I'll shout out to Sarah and Missy, who I know will listen to this. Missy is a cat, but I'm sure she does listen.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And as always, go Bobcats! Not Bob Space Cats.
Bobcats. Bobcats.
That's
not right. Bob Cats.
Bobcats. That's right. Frostburg.
Next up here on the Bobcast, we'll talk cross country and track and field. I'm going to start that over. I screwed that up. Next up here on the Bobcast, I have head coach Shane Brookshire, and we're going to be talking both cross country and track and field here on the Bobcast. We'll start with cross country, competed down at Davis and Elkins this past weekend. The men finishing second in that meet. First meet of the season for cross country, really, and for both of your programs here. How did it feel, really, for the runners just to finally get back out there and compete for the first time in a while?
I mean, it did feel odd at first, just because having cross country in March, it's not a normal feeling, but get out there and finally get some competition in, like some outside competition in. I mean, we did a lot of time trials in the fall, and just to be able to run against other schools and actually had like some really good weather with it. We definitely ran better than I was expecting for our first race back, and I knew we would do well, but I didn't think that we would do as well as we did with a lot of the individual performances. So I think they were excited to finally get back to it. I said, once again, like running against outside competition and running against like one of the best schools in the conference that also qualified for nationals last year. So really getting to test ourselves against quality competition.
What was the mindset for your runners going into that meet? Is it really just wanting to get used to competing again? Because I know a lot of them will be competing this weekend when you adjust to track and field, which we'll get to in a little bit. But where was that mindset? Was it just getting times in and getting back used to the competition level that you kind of just talked about?
Yeah, that was the mindset that I wanted them to have going into it, was just get back into competition, get a feel for it, just set us up for the rest of the season and knock some rust off. And I think they went in with like some nerves, and because it was the first race in over a year for us. But so if you watch the race, if you look at the times, like you wouldn't even be able to tell that we haven't been racing in that long just based off of the performances that they had. So I mean, it was an exceptional day for them.
2 top 10 finishes for the men in that meet, as I mentioned before. Finished second overall. Two of the seniors, Braxton Clark, who finished 5th. He was your top finisher. Devin Horseman Guy came across in 7th. What have you seen from just those two in particular so far in training, the work they've put in leading up to this meet? Because, I mean, both of them are very big parts of this program.
They have done absolutely everything that's been asked of them to do from a training standpoint. Like they have put in all the miles. Like Braxton really upped his miles during the summer, and then once again went back up to 120 miles a week during the winter. We've been keeping him relatively high throughout the fall or throughout February, and then Devin. I mean, this is only his second season ever with cross country, and he upped his mileage as well during the summer, and like during the winter went up to about 80 miles a week, and still keeping him relatively high for himself, and really like more emphasis towards the track side with him, but he's coming through on the cross country course and had a huge breakout performance. It was almost a 2-minute PR in the 5K this past weekend for him, and Braxton like dropping his cross country 5K PR from 16:13 from last year all the way down to the 15:30s now. So it's huge performances by both of them, and it's because of the dedication that they have towards their training to put in the miles no matter what the conditions are.
How different, because I mean obviously you're competing in an unusual time of the year for cross country, typically going on one of the first fall sports to start, but of course with COVID getting pushed back here to the spring season, is there any kind of difference with how they're able to train for these type of events, or is it pretty much the same because you have a lot of these cross country runners who are also still competing at this time of the year, just in track and field though?
With this season, it's extremely challenging from a training standpoint because even though these athletes are doing track as well, most of them are focused on shorter events in track, to where they're doing like the 1500, the 800, and in cross country they're running 8 or 5Ks, and they'll do an 8K at conference, and so there's a big discrepancy between the styles of training between the two. Normally we have a lot longer to adjust, but I made the decision this year to focus primarily on track because I feel that that's where we're going to have more team success at. But like with somebody like Braxton, who is more of a longer distance track athlete, the transition for him is going to be a lot easier going from cross country into track. And so his training doesn't really change too much. We're not really on grass or hills or anything like that during practice. Like most of the time we're using the track, but he'll have a pretty similar adjustment, but with other guys like Devin Horseman Guy, Daniel Foster, Justice Lee Provost, Cole Morgan, Brendan Tomasoni, they're more track focused right now. We're just out there doing cross country, and which was another reason why our performance on Friday shocked me as to how well they all ran, because we're training on a track, and we're not training on hills. We're not training in grass most of the time, and they stepped out onto a cross country course and ran phenomenal and stuff. So it was shocking to see that transition from the track to the course didn't impact us too much.
Some of the new faces in this program that you brought in have also performed pretty well in that meet over the weekend. One of them you just brought up on the men's side was Cole Morgan, who had a 22nd place finish, coming in just over 17 and a half minutes for him. And then on the women's side, Hannah Muir, who another first year, 18th place for her in her first collegiate meet. What are these two and the new faces you're bringing into this program? What are they supplying to what you're trying to build here with this cross country team?
Well, they are the future of this program. We've got a couple seniors that are about to graduate and would have the opportunity to come back next year with their eligibility remaining. But really, athletes like Hannah and Cole, Justice, Matt, they are the future of this program, and so we're glad to see the success that they've been having. Cole ran a PR, I think it was by about 0.03 of a second, but it's a PR nonetheless. And Hannah missed her PR by 5 seconds. And the great thing about these individuals, along with the work that they put in, their dedication to it, is that these are local athletes too. Hannah's from Mountain Ridge High School, Cole's from Allegheny. Justice hasn't ran yet, but he's from Mountain Ridge, and Matt, who will make his collegiate debut in track this weekend, he's from Fort Hill. And so our program is going to be built around the success of these local athletes, and that's really how I like to build most of my programs, is that I want to bring in local kids. And like I said, these individuals are great work ethic, great training, and they're highly motivated to be successful here. And so to see that from a first-year class is definitely going to set us up well as we continue to bring in recruits over these next several years.
So cross country is out of action until the MEC Championships. Those are on March 20th, but track and field is in action for the first time this weekend at Glenville State, their first meet of the season. Kind of give us a glimpse into what we can expect from that meet, their first meet of the season.
Well, same thing with the cross countries. We want to just knock some rust off. It's been over a year since all these athletes have competed, and we want to have a strong start, but mostly just get back into that groove of competing again. And so I think John Kearns, Mike Belker, are two seniors in the throws. I'm expecting a lot of points out of them at the conference meet based off of our projections. So seeing them get back at it with some events that they haven't done in 2 years now. And so there's going to be a lot of rust, competition rust there for them to shake off. And Clay Washington, and we got on the women's side, Alyssa Mullery, who's our top returner. Also for them, knocking off some rust, in their running events. And so, this is just going to be pretty much like a test of fitness to see where we're at, just like we did for cross country. And my distance guys and women are also going to be participating in it this weekend as we look to use 1500 as a time trial as a final tune-up before the cross country championship. So that's kind of where this is all really weird, is that we're mixing cross and track together. So they'll get a final tune-up before they go to the cross country championships. But yeah, like for pretty much everybody that we got is just to kind of see where we're at, and like for all the newcomers to have a relatively low-key meet to get back into the groove of competing, because like even with all of our first years like they also haven't competed in an outdoor track meet since 2019. So for a lot of our athletes, it's been almost 2 years now since they've actually had any form of outdoor competition. And so there's going to be a lot of nerves. There's going to be just a lot of getting back into the feel of it. But I think this upcoming weekend is going to really showcase like the success that we're going to have throughout the rest of the season with track.
Well, Coach, glad to have you back here on the Bobcast, and starting to get a really busy time of the year for you. Of course, with your two sports going on simultaneously, it'll be interesting to see how you, as a coach, and the rest of your athletes maneuver this throughout the next couple of weeks and months for their seasons. Thanks for joining us in the Bobcast.
Thank you.
Next up here on the Bobcast, I'm here with head coach Kylie Heyne from volleyball. As coach, you wrapped up your season this past week. 3 more matches to end what kind of turned into a pretty busy slate of games down the stretch of the season. You went to Notre Dame to play a double on Tuesday, and then wrapped up with a good matchup with Fairmont on Friday. You played them tough, but falling in 4 sets to the Falcons. When you look at those final 3 matches, I guess as a whole, what were your takeaways just from this past week in those matches?
I guess the takeaways for the past week is that just like throughout the entire season, we've made those small improvements throughout each set, each match, which is all great stuff. I think in the long run, though, it's frustrating to, maybe take a set or no sets at all, but like the scores are super close and still not come away with a win.
Yeah, but you played you got the first set against Fairmont on Friday, and I mean that was a team you opened your season against. You played that whole. I mean, that was a heck of a day for you guys.
The 4-hour turnaround.
Yeah, exactly.
Going to play one team to another.
Yes, going from hosting AB to going to Fairmont to start the season, but you still played them tough in that game. You lost in 3 sets, but there were 3 close ones. But you won the first set. You got off to a great start. It was really pretty much the first set was you guys getting out to a pretty sizable lead, Fairmont chipping away, you going out to a big lead again, back and forth like that until you eventually took that first set victory. What allowed your team to get off to that good start?
I think that the team is really starting to own the whole we have this lead, we're not losing it kind of mentality, and because it's been taken away so many times. And I've told them too, I was like, at some point you just put your foot down and you put the ball away to keep earning those points, to not rely on some outside factor, whether it be a referee making a call that's in our favor, or hoping that the other team makes an error, hitting error, service error, whatever it is. Like, earn your points. So I think that slowly has clicked in small parts throughout the season. In that first set against Fairmont, it did. So that's a positive thing to end the season on.
And I mean, obviously the season didn't exactly go the way you wanted it. But I mean, there were still some positives definitely with this team from players and just when you look, and we've talked about some of the players, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But when you just look back at the season as a whole, and I think you touched on it a second ago with just how you were getting better and better, and I think really the biggest disappointment is just how short this season was, because you guys were, I think, hitting a stride. You could see it at points in this season, especially that beginning against Fairmont State. But when you reflect on this season and look back, what comes to mind first for you?
When I look back, I think I have the terrible thought of like all the what ifs.
Right.
Like, what if we did get to start our season playing AB, or what if we didn't have to do 2 double headers with AB on whatever day that was, and with Notre Dame, like if we got to split those matches up, like if we had the traditional season, what would it have looked like? But clearly that didn't happen. So we worked with what we were given, and we did make improvements. So I think that, this weekend has taken a lot of like reflection, and I think I'm going to continue to reflect. But, I have never, and I don't think any of these girls have actually ever gone walked away from a season completely defeated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like zero wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, you know, like I said a little bit earlier, you just like put your foot down and you don't ever let it happen again. So looking back, there's definitely the improvements and the positive things that we can take away. And then I think the biggest negative of not winning is just almost like a growing part. It's just like, okay, that happened. It's never going to happen again.
Right.
And how are we going to do that moving forward? So I think it's a lot of team stuff that needs to be improved. But then, you know, we get to, in 2 weeks, we get to start back up again with some individual practices to really hone in on those small skills that each person needs to improve on that I think will make a really big difference come fall, which is just in a couple months.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's the interesting thing. Like, this has obviously been a weird season for you guys schedule-wise, but also playing in the spring, and you're right back at it in 6 months. I did quick math there. 6 months.
Yeah.
You're back playing we hope, if everything goes well, back to a normal season come September. So, I mean, I asked you to kind of reflect on the season, but at the same time, you're kind of hitting the ground running again pretty soon, aren't you?
Yeah, so I don't know. The more I think about it, it's like if I take out the fact that this was like our season and think about it more in the frame of mind of like, oh, this was spring season, which that was not the thought process at all like a week ago. But like the traditional spring season, you have your individual practices, your team practices, you throw in a couple scrimmages, and then they're off for a couple weeks before coming back for preseason. So with this, we actually got some competition with our conference. We got 10 matches, which is more like structured matches, you know, which is more than what maybe we would typically get in the fall. I mean, in the spring, typically. Yeah. Look at me getting all switched up with my season. So, like, that's interesting. And now we get to finish with, like, this is stuff that we really need to get better at for the fall. And, like, I don't want to say I like it, but it's just a different way that I'm interested to see if the improvement keeps on happening at a high rate like it has happened, where maybe it's not as during a traditional spring season, you don't see as much improvement as quickly as what I think I've seen so far in this spring semester. Yeah.
It's definitely like a different way to approach things.
You gotta twist things however you need to think about it in a positive way.
No, I totally get it. It's really like a different way to approach everything for everybody, yourself included, the players, everybody. But I mean, when you look at the players from this season, and like there are players who have stood out that we've talked about throughout this season. The one I want to start with is Edwina Linez. She played very well to end the season. 3 out of her last 4 matches, she got double-doubles in and just kind of built off of a strong first season here at Frostburg and just continued to do that throughout this season. I know you would say, of course, she's skilled, but having the players around her, the attackers that I want to get to in a second, also help out with that. From an offensive standpoint, but what did you see from Edwina this season and how she grew her game?
You know, I think that with Ed, she's got great hands. She does, and that's, I mean, obviously you need that to set.
Yes.
But I think that there's a few things that we really have talked about throughout the season. You know, we need to work on her feet and her footwork. We need to work on, you know, just her learning of the game. And you know, there was that improvement, and I think that it's just that constant reinforcement using her eyes a lot more. So it's so funny. You think of a setter like, oh, they have great hands. They need to push the ball to different hitters, whatever it is. But honestly, great setters have great feet and great eye work. And, you know, it's exciting that I do have, like, I know that part of the game really, really well. And I think it's going to be exciting moving forward with her to make sure she's like, it's exciting when you get to teach someone something that you feel super confident with, but then also you see the growth in their game too. So I think that Ed already has a little bit of she has the foundation, but like she can just keep getting more skilled.
Right. And when I bring up those hitters that you talk about, 2 first years lead the team in kills. Beverly Braun at 115 kills for her season. Lake and Michael right behind her with 77. Those 2 really drove your offense this season and just continues the trend that was kind of established last season before you got here and continued this year with the youth in this program just is good. They show up and they know how to play right away. What goes into that with those players that I mentioned, both Beverly and Lakin?
So first thing I think of is like just talking with even Fairmont's head coach, she was like, we were just talking about like our teams and this season and everything like that, and she was like, you've got some great freshmen, like pointing specifically at Bev, like she's going to take you places in the conference. And she's right, but I think that, like I said earlier in a different Bobcast, that, like you have to have more than just one. Like great teams can't rely on just one person. And that's really awesome that both Bev and Lakin, who are both first-year freshmen, fresh out, like coming onto the court and kind of dominating in that fact, like that's awesome. And especially because they're on opposite sides of the net too. So it's not like it's just both of our outsides, you know. That's going to make opponents be like, oh, man, who do we need to focus on? Do we need to focus on their outside, on their right side? It's going to be – and then I'm putting in Ed's eye work. Like, she's going to mix blockers up. There's going to be so many positive things that continue to happen. It's just a bummer that they didn't happen quicker.
Yeah. No, but that ties in well, like, with the potential that this team has with just working on the little things. And that's really what you can take these next 6 months to work on. But for you, back at your alma mater, coaching, you lead a team that theoretically could bring everyone back next year. There weren't any seniors on this team, but when you look at moving forward, and I know it's pretty soon. It doesn't seem like it, but, September will be here in a heartbeat. What excites you the most about what this team can do over these next few months to get ready for next season?
What excites me? So much excites me. I think, throughout our season, we've talked a lot about team and just like motivation and everything, and how everybody's motivation is a little bit different. And specifically for me, like being at my alma mater and wanting to do like great things in that pride, is definitely there. So like I'm not going to stop at really anything to get it to where I know it can be. And I think that the girls too, like they've been asked to like really dig and figure out like what is their motivation, what is their why, like why do they want to be here. And I think taking those things and talking about them and having like that vulnerable outlook and feeling okay talking about some of the things that aren't so comfortable to talk about, really opens up the doors for the team to become like a unit and a family. And I think once that happens, teams are unstoppable. And that's the exciting part, because we're not there yet. So for us to for us to have the kinds of games or sets or like couples of points that we have had with such a big part of what we're lacking still like being worked on, I think that in itself is exciting. It gives like something to reach for. I think it's hard when you're the teams that go undefeated and it's just like, okay, we got to do everything we can. Like that's a little bit more pressure. Right now we have nothing to lose. So like we don't have players to lose, we don't have matches to lose. Like that's all, we can only go up from here.
That's true.
Yeah.
And you've been with this program when it reached its heights just a little over 10 years ago, so you know what it takes to get them back to that point. And I wish you the best of luck in getting them ready to get to these next few months and getting them ready for next season. Coach, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Next up here on the Bobcast, we're talking men's soccer with head coach Keith Byrnes. Coach coming off a 1-0 loss on Friday to Concord, and have a matchup this weekend in Philippi against Alderson Broaddus on Sunday. Looking back at the Concord game, just a 1-goal loss. Goal came in the first half. What did you take away from that one?
We weren't at our best, and we didn't find a way to win a game where we weren't playing to the level we thought we should play. So that's kind of what we took away from it. I think good teams find a way to win games when they're not at their best, and we certainly weren't, and we couldn't find a way, and we let them kind of outwork us. They did some of the things that it's just a mindset and not necessarily a skill thing. And it was a letdown, definitely, to get outworked at the goal. And we had our opportunities and couldn't finish. But overall, they wanted it more than we did.
2 early chances for your team. Tamino Brown, Randy Putnam. 2 early chances within the first 5 minutes of the match right at the start. What gave your forwards the opportunities out of the gate to get those early chances?
Well, they play a pretty high line, which we kind of worked on, getting in behind them, and it worked. We created some chances, and we got in right away. We weren't able to capitalize, and then when Tamino went down with an injury, I don't know if it threw us off just a little bit, seeing how dangerous he had been, but we just kind of didn't seem to get that same type of flow and balls in behind and setting guys up. Although second half we had opportunities again, and it's on us. We had the chances, we didn't finish them.
Concord kind of flipped the script after that. They scored in the 28th minute. Several chances that Joel Saul had to kind of pay mind to before they eventually got one past him. What did you see that Concord kind of changed, whether it was schematically or just players improving, whatever it may be, to kind of open things up in their favor?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, I think we dropped our play a little bit. Like I said, after Tamino's injury, it just kind of took a little bit out of us. And then our scout said, just don't let them get free kicks and set pieces because that's how they're going to score. And, sure enough, long ball into the box. We couldn't clear it, and we couldn't clear the knockdown, and they won the scrum and kicked it in the back of the net. They didn't do anything special to create the chance. They were just hungrier in the box than we were, and sometimes it's all it takes.
And Joel, I mean, he's been good these last couple of matches. Of course, a tough start to the season against the defending national champions in Charleston, but he had the shutout against Wheeling, allowing the goal on Friday against Concord. But Joel, I mean, he's been a steady force in goal for your team for a number of years now. 4 saves in each of the last 2 matches for him, and it seems like despite the loss, it looks like he and the rest of the defense are starting to kind of settle in a little bit more and play a little bit more steady on that back line. What are you seeing from the defense and Joel from these last couple of matches?
Yeah, I mean, Joel obviously has been one of our key players for the last couple of years, and he gets called upon to make 1 or 2 big saves and do all the other saves that he's supposed to do, and that's kind of what keeps us in the game. We haven't been a team that outshoots anybody. We're not going to light up the scoreboard, so it's really their job to keep it as close to 0 as possible and hope we get 1 or 2. But we're not really built for giving up those type of goals and then coming back. That's just not who we are. We need to defend well and be the team that capitalizes on those type of goals on our end, to kind of put the game away. And it just didn't happen on Sunday. But the defense is, they've worked hard on their organization. They're usually on the same page as far as their shape goes and cutting off angles. And, it's just one of those things. It's just, again, it's just a mindset of getting to that loose ball in the box and doing whatever you can to clear it high, far, and wide and not kick it off of somebody's shins so it bounces around and someone else kicks it in. It's just something, you can train for it, but it's just a little bit of a mentality.
You mentioned Tamino and him going down. He's someone that, since he came to Frostburg last year, has been a very active player for you, very active with the ball at his feet, creating chances for himself and for others. Tell me a little bit about what he brings to the table for you guys from an attacking standpoint and how he helps this team out.
Well, he's dangerous. I mean, he's fast, he's strong, and he can hit a ball. So he's going to have his moments where he makes mistakes and loses the ball, but at any given moment, if he just gets enough space, he can finish for you. Kind of like in the Wheeling game. I mean, we weren't by any means, controlling the game or playing anything special, but you just give him some daylight and an opportunity to really kind of get his shot off, and he's capable of scoring. So just that work rate up top is a nuisance on defenders and kind of gets other people going. So there's always a chance, and he just needs a half chance to kind of really get things going for us. And so when he goes we are what we are this year. We're a little bit limited in our offense, so losing one, and Randy came into the game bandaged and banged up, and Vaughn was questionable right before the start. So it didn't put us off to a good start. But, hey, we got to find a way to play through it and find a way to win. That's all it comes down to.
You mentioned Vaughn, and he's someone who's been pretty active for you as well, Vaughn Phillips. He scored against Wheeling. He had a shot on Friday. He at the head of this attack as a forward has really produced a decent number of chances so far this year at the top of your attack. What have you seen from Vaughn and kind of how he can spark some offense? I know you're not, like you're saying, you're not the most offensive-minded team, I guess, but to have a guy like Vaughn who has proven through the first couple of matches of this year that he can be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, he's similar to Tamino.
Yep.
I mean, same type of size, good speed, good strength. Also hits a ball well when around the box. So for him, it's just a matter of reps and getting game minutes. I mean, he's been out of the college game for almost 3 years, so it's been a long road back from injury recoveries and trying to play and just play 11v11 and get his touch back and really kind of play within a team and within a system rather than just like pick up on a Sunday afternoon. So he's coming along. So I think the ceiling's still pretty high for him, and he's doing well right now. But I do think he can even get cleaner on the ball, and his first touch and his decision making will come with the more time he gets out there.
When you are planning for whoever, and you're focusing more so on your 11 than the other team, what is your when your team is operating at its best out on the pitch, what is the mindset? What is the game plan you're really striving for with this team in order to win these games? When your team is at its best, what are they doing best out there on the field?
Well, they're playing quickly. They're switching the point of attack. They get into a rhythm. We're not holding on to the ball too long. We're not taking too many touches in the defensive third. But we're getting into the attack. We're being patient. We're trying to pull defenses apart and look for our best opportunity as opposed to the first opportunity. And when we do that, we're good. When we rush it, when we go too quickly as soon as we get there, when we get a lot of touches on the ball and start dribbling into other people's feet, that's when it starts to fall apart.
Back on the road this weekend, Alderson Broaddus, your opponent, on Sunday afternoon. You have a week to prepare for them. What can we expect to see in that match coming up on Sunday?
No idea. They haven't played a game yet.
So
they can get a scout on us. We can't get a scout on them. I know they'll just be a competitive team, probably similar to the middle of the pack teams like ourselves. So we just focus on ourselves. What do we got to do better? Where do we eliminate mistakes, and where can we be a little bit sharper? But yeah, we don't really have no film on them for this season because of some things that have been going on there. So we'll just wait and see.
Coach, appreciate you joining us. Best of luck this weekend, traveling down to Philippi, and wish you all the best. Continue the rest of the season.
All right, thanks for having me.
Next up on the Bobcast, the return of field hockey and head coach Kaitlin Thompson with us here on the Bobcast. Coach, a loss in your, I guess, quote-unquote season opener with your abbreviated season here in the spring, but 482 days between when you played Bellarmine to end your 2019 season and your game on Saturday. How good did it feel for you as a coach and for all your players to finally get back out there and compete again?
It was fantastic. We were so excited to get back out there. It was great to be able to have a senior game because I think our 3 seniors that we have just been fantastic through the growth of this program, and they really deserved to be sent off in style. And it was also nice because we have such a large freshman class of 10 to be able to get them into some game experience because nothing hits quite like game day. So it was great to be able to get them out there and get the jitters out and really get that game experience in for this freshman as well.
I want to talk about the seniors quick before we dive into the game and the 3 seniors that you talked about, Sam Coffey, Gabby Rahuba, and Brooke Lafayette. All 3 really integral parts of your program for the past couple of years that they've been here. Sam Coffey has never missed a game. Both Brooke and Sam have started every game that they have played. And Gabby's been a very big-time offensive player for you as well. How good was it to, like you said, give them their proper send-off, but also the added bonus of just recently fans being allowed back at Bobcat Stadium, and also each of the girls getting their parents to be able to be there and walk out to midfield with them? How special was that for them?
It was amazing, because again, not only are those three girls an important part of our program, but so are their parents. So being able to not only give our student athletes that experience of having their parents there on that really important game for them, but being able to give that back to their parents was really, really special for me to be able to see them, be able to interact, and for us to be able to give that back to them. And it was great to have fans in the stands as well. The student athletes that were out there were great and really cheering us on. So especially the women's lacrosse team was out there cheering on Sam, because she's obviously also a lacrosse girl. So it was really great to be able to have that game day environment, just like, before all this craziness.
Yes.
So that was extremely special. And yeah, you touched on it. The class has just been such a mainstay for us. Obviously, they came in the same year that I came in, so it's a really special group of girls for me, and just being able to watch their progress on and off the field for the last 4 years has just been so special for me. And they're definitely, some people that we're going to miss extremely so when they do end up leaving, but they've really left a lasting impact on this program. So we've just been extremely grateful to have those three and their families in our program for these 4 years.
And fitting that you get Sam Coffey to find the back of the cage on her senior day to open the scoring. You guys had a good start. A lot of early chances. The goal coming off a penalty corner that Brooke Lafayette swung in, and then Taylor Hackett finding Sam for that goal. What went well for your team to start off that game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think we really came out and we knew what we've been able to do this past fall and spring semester, and we knew what we were capable of, and we really just came out swinging right off the bat, and it looked great to start. And when Taylor Henderson drew that corner, I knew immediately I was going to send that ball over to Coffey to call that play for Coffey to be able to score, and she executed it perfectly. I couldn't have asked for anything better from her, especially in her senior game. That was so incredible to be able to see. So, so we really just started out the game great. I think after a little bit, especially after they scored that goal on us, we started losing a little bit of confidence and started reverting to some of our old bad habits. But again, we're a really young team. Just kind of getting those first game day jitters out was important. So we're looking forward to going back to St. Mary's.
Yeah, no, you play them again coming up. You brought up that late first half goal, and like I said, things were kind of going well for you for the first 30 minutes of the game, and then it was just in the last 2 minutes they're able to find the back of the net to tie the score. And then I think that kind of changed the tide of the game, because the second half started and St. Mary's kind of seemed to assert themselves a little bit more. Was it anything schematically you could see from them or for your team that kind of changed with that goal, or what kind of happened that kind of changed the tide in that game?
I think they just kind of took the momentum and ran with it, and we could not find a way to bring it back. I think in the beginning of the game we were connecting our passes pretty decently, but after that momentum swing, we lost our ball speed, we lost our connection, we weren't playing together. We were playing okay as individuals, but we were not playing as a team. And that's where the breakdown really, really occurred. So I know, moving forward, we know that we're better than that. We've seen ourselves play so much better than that and connect better than that. So that's definitely something we're going to continue working on in practice over this next week and hopefully fix before Sunday.
So, St. Mary's, they had chances in that third quarter, but they didn't pay it off with goals until the fourth. But you insert Maggie Hopp in that third quarter to start the second half. Few nice saves for her late in that third quarter that kept the score tied at the time. You went with Madison Manalanson as well to start the game. When you look at those two goalkeepers and how they performed, what caught your eye from their performances?
Yeah, definitely think Maggie stepped up this game. I think she did a really great job. Obviously, she didn't get the start, and she made it known that she was upset by that, but in a good way. She showed us in the pregame warm-up that she was ready whenever we needed her. She was letting Coach Nicole know on the sideline, I'm ready, and that confidence is something we love to see. So that's why we went with her in the second half. They've been battling it out all fall and all spring. They're very close in their skill levels, so to see that confidence from Maggie really was fantastic, and I think she played with confidence out on the field and made some good stops for us. So
obviously, with every sport and every team now, there's challenges that have been presented now, playing and then leading up to this season with COVID, and I think the challenges are unique for your team, being that you're an independent and every other team here is part of some conference. And with conferences for many sports sort of limiting play to just your conference opponents, that put you guys in a tough position. So when you look back a couple months ago, aside from what the situation with COVID-19 looked like, could you have foreseen maybe 3 or 4 months ago having this opportunity to go back out and play again, and how much, when you have that flashback and think about that, how does that frame your, I guess, excitement to get back out there this past weekend?
Yeah, I couldn't have foreseen it. We're extremely lucky to get in the games that we're getting in. Not everybody at the D2 level is getting this game experience right now, and we're extremely, extremely grateful for that. I know we're having to dip into playing some D3 opponents, but we're playing some really, really tough Division III opponents. St. Mary's is a fantastic program that, gets top 25 nods every now and then Salisbury is also just a powerhouse in and of its own self. So I think it's really great that even though we're playing these Division III schools, it's amazing competition. It's still a high level of competition. So we're extremely grateful to be able to not only be playing field hockey, but to be playing this high level field hockey. So that way, once we hopefully get back into what will look a little bit more normal for fall of 2021, fingers crossed.
Yes.
Hopefully we don't miss a beat there, because we've been playing these tough competitors this whole spring, and we're ready to just jump right back in. Again, mentioned getting these 10 freshmen playing experience and all of that. So this spring has been fantastic. Getting the competitors that we've been able to put on our schedule has been fantastic, and we're just really excited to continue to grow this spring. And
you're right back at it this weekend. You mentioned before the same St. Mary's team. You travel to them on Sunday. What goes into the preparation for that rematch just a couple days from now? Just
looking at playing like ourselves more is really what we need to do, is really find that confidence that we had in that the first quarter, and play with it all 4 quarters. There's no reason for us to revert back to our old ways. We are who we are now, and we have to continue building on that first quarter, because that's the Frostburg field hockey that we are in 2021 and beyond. So just have to continue building off that good stuff that we saw, and hopefully get that win on Sunday.
Well, Coach, it was great to see you and the team get back out there on the field this past weekend. Thanks for joining us on the Bobcast, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Next up on the Bobcast, we welcome in head coach Anthony Williams from the baseball team. Coach, opened up your season this past weekend out in Aberdeen, a 4-game series against Kutztown, doubleheaders on Friday and Sunday. Losing all 4, but some close losses in there, and we'll dive into it in a little bit. But just your overall takeaways from the 4 games this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, thanks for having me on. I think it's something where you're really not interested in moral victories, but
Right.
when you're getting ready to get into the season here and you're trying to learn a little bit about your personnel, having a shortened fall, and then really only the last couple days before the season started where we were able to get out in the field. So I think where that leaves us is in the process of trying to still evaluate and find the right mix of pieces. We saw some good things. I'll kind of start with 3 of the 4 games we had quality starts on the mound, including 2 freshmen and a transfer in Josh Cauliflower. So we felt really good about 3 of the 4 starting pitching performances gave us chances to win in those 3 games. Unfortunately, in those 3 games we fell a little short in the bullpen late, but we definitely saw some good things, and there's a lot of positives. There's probably more positives than negatives coming out of this weekend. So Kutztown, tip your cap to them. They played well. They did the things they needed to do to win. So we'll learn from it and move forward.
I mean, you got off to good starts in each of the Friday games. You're an out away from a win you just talked about in Game 1 on Friday before Kutztown scored those 5 runs with 2 outs, but then you were able to bounce back and force extras, and then a 3-run lead in Game 2 off the Justin Jimenez 3-run shot in that game. But like you said, still positives to come out of this weekend, and from Friday, getting off to those good 2 starts, and then Sunday also wrapping up the weekend, a 4-2 loss, but again, being able to stay close in that one. Like you said, not really moral victories, but still some good to come out of the first weekend of the year.
Right. So our mantra with our program has been all about the concept of GEL, and GEL stands for grit, energy, and leadership. So we've been preaching it all fall and all winter, and then into the early spring here now when the season started. And so it's kind of a good opportunity to put those concepts to the test on Friday. And we brought a ton of positive energy. Obviously, it's opening day. The guys are amped up, but we held that throughout the game. We showed a high level of grit, in that first game. Obviously, you mentioned we were 1 out away. We had a 4-2 lead in the 7th inning with 2 outs and nobody on, and we weren't able to close it out. So that one hurts, but Kutztown goes ahead and puts up a 5 spot in the top of the 7th, and kind of, for most programs, it's going to take the wind out of their sails. But we showed that level of grit that we've been preaching, and that the guys really put it on display to come back and rally from 3 runs down in extra innings, or to force extra innings, I should say. Made it 7-7. Mitch Fife smoked the ball that the third baseman made a heck of a play on. I'm still not sure how he got his glove on it, and that kept the game tied, and that could have easily walked it off as well. So we showed that level of grit to come back, and I'm just really proud of that effort to put ourselves in that spot there on opening day. We just weren't able to finish it off. So, and then again, like you said, in the second game, we had a 3-0 lead in the 5th. Freshman making his college debut, in Hayden Ford, who threw great. And Justin Jimenez, first college at-bats, a 3-run homer, so can't imagine a better start for him. Also had a double in that game. So, we put ourselves in good positions late. We'll find the right pieces and mix and match the bullpen to kind of be able to get these guys in positions to succeed. And certainly we wanted to get out of there in the 4th game with a win, and we battled back to tie it up on a couple of occasions. If I remember correctly, in Game 4, Bryce Jackson had a opposite field sacrifice fly to tie it the first time, and then again in the later in the game had a 2-out double down the line to tie the game at 2. And certainly some energy there in the 4th game, and they got a big pinch hit double with 2 outs to go ahead 4-2, and we weren't able to muster up another comeback. But really got to tip my cap to James Stefanowicz, who's a freshman, and really going into the winter here was not a consideration to be a starter. And because of his performance over the winter, just being able to throw strikes and command multiple pitches for strikes, he found himself out there in the first weekend in Game 4 due to some injuries and due to just some inconsistencies. He had been probably the most consistent guy throughout the winter and earned the opportunity, and we're really proud of him to be able to go out and throw 5 innings against a quality team and give his team a chance to win.
Yeah, the 2 first years you brought up, and Stefanowicz, of course, who had that great start yesterday. And I want to start off with Justin Jimenez, though. You brought him up. He had the home run in his first career at-bat in Game 2 on Friday. 2 more hits and 2 more RBIs as well on Sunday. And also showed some athleticism behind the plate. Made a couple nice stops in Game 1 that I saw yesterday with some guys on base and some pitches in the dirt. Showed some athleticism behind the plate for your team. And he seems like someone who, at least early on, I mean, he's gotten a few games under his belt now, but he seems to be someone that both with the glove and with the bat is someone that's going to be able to produce for you guys.
And Justin has a lot of confidence, and
Yeah.
I think you're looking for those young guys that are going to be able to come in. The situation's not going to be too big for them, and it's certainly not for Justin. He's going to have growing pains like any young player, but we're certainly proud of him, and we knew that he was certainly ready to handle the situation to come up, and certainly with James as well on the mound. He was out there competing. Wasn't thinking, oh man, I'm a freshman. What am I doing out here? Like, no, he's give me the ball and let's go. And we had other performances similar to that. Nate Vermillion, came out of the bullpen in the first game and really looked like a guy that wanted to be out there and wanted the ball and was ready to compete. So we were really proud of that. And just overall, I was proud of the guys. I know it's hard to say that when you're 0-4, but I saw a lot of really good things. We had a ton of questions. We had a bunch of injuries. Arguably our top 2 arms are out for the season. So and AJ Campbell was also our starting third baseman last year and cleanup hitter. So we're trying to fill some holes and answer some questions. And one of those biggest questions was at third base. Who was going to fill that this year? And we had kind of been experimenting later in the fall with Ryan Roll, who's a senior, a 5th-year senior, who had predominantly been a first baseman, DH. And, we asked the senior to kind of, change positions, and Ryan did an awesome job over the summer of getting himself in really, really good shape. It's the best shape he's been in a long time, and he's done a great job. He held down third base. He made a ton of plays over there, and certainly proud of him for being able to take that challenge on and, for us, answer a really, really big question that we had to get answered in these non-conference games because we only have one more weekend before we start Mountain East play.
No, it's coming up quick. And just to end your point on Stefanowicz, and who got the start in Game 2 of the doubleheader yesterday, 5 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, and 7 strikeouts in that game. Great performance from him. And you talk about Ryan Roll, and I know I was surprised to see him at the start of this year and the way he looked, because he definitely, what you just said, the work he put in over the summer to get in good shape, to get in better shape, and make that adjustment that the coaching staff asked of him to slide across the diamond to third base and holding down the fourth there. And obviously on the other side you have Bryce Jackson at the other corner at first base. What does it mean to have a guy who can be versatile so late in his career, like Ryan, who was your leading hitter last year in the shortened season you had in 2020? What does it mean to have him be so versatile and allow him to slide across the diamond and still keep a lefty with Bryce Jackson over at first base and have them both in the lineup, because they're both very good hitters?
It's huge for our team. It gives opportunities in that DH spot to some other guys like an Andrew Smith. But more importantly, for a guy like Ryan, he has aspirations to play beyond college.
Yes.
And so I think for him to be able to do that, he knew that, he was going to need to transform his body, so to speak, and get himself in a position where, scouts are going to maybe take a look at him and say, okay, this is a guy that can do multiple things. He's not just a one-position guy or just a hitter. He's a guy that can play defense at a high level. And so we're really proud of him for doing that, and it certainly is going to be a big help for our team as well. And I think Ryan knows that, if I can help the team and do these types of things, it's only going to help me and make me better as well. So, and like I said, we're just extremely proud of that.
I think the thing that got you in trouble, I look at the final scores, and of course you have the 2 close games. The first one, the extra inning, and then the last one, the 4-2 loss. But you see in the middle, you see 9-3, and you see 16-6. And I think that's misleading, because you take out the 2 big innings. There was the 12-run fourth in Game 1 on Sunday, and the 8-run fifth on Friday in Game 2. You take out those 2 innings, and there are 2 close games yet again. So I think that just builds upon the point you're making, which is it's hard to feel good about an 0-4 weekend, but when you really look deep into it, there's a lot of good to come out of this first series of the first series of the season, I should say. But the guys played well in all 4 games.
I thought we dominated the first game, and I thought the score was even a little bit closer than it could have been. We hit some balls into the wind that I think are getting out on a normal day, but neither here nor there. I mean, you can't take away those big innings. You can't ignore them. They happened, but I think to your point, if we can keep the snowball from rolling downhill, so to speak, and just be able to have a guy come in, make a big pitch, or a guy make a big play to get us out of that so that we aren't, looking up after we just tie the game at 4 and we're giving up a 12 spot in the bottom half of the inning like we did in Game 3. Those things will certainly, like I said, with the bullpen pieces, though, it'll come out in the wash. The guys that are going to grab these roles and run with it. It's when you got so many new players, and really this is the first time we've played against another team since last March. So we're still trying to figure out, who can do what and who's capable of, handling the big moments. So, but that's what these games are for. I mean, obviously they count as wins and losses, and we're 0-4, and we understand that. We don't, necessarily, going to sit there and accept that. We're going to work hard to kind of find a way to get a win this weekend. But, at the end of the day, we understand that we need to use these games to prepare ourselves for conference play, so we have 4 more opportunities to do that this weekend.
And those 4 games, 2 at IUP on Saturday, and then off to Slippery Rock on Sunday for 2 more. This week in practice, leading up to those games, what can be improved upon, and what are you really going to hone in on leading up to those 4 games this weekend?
Obviously outside of some of the stuff on the mound with our bullpen and, trying to figure out, those roles. I think the other thing would be probably a little bit more base running, something we haven't had a lot of live opportunities, really none, prior to the season. And I thought our identity is going to be putting pressure on teams, being on the bases and creating pressure. And we didn't really do that at all this weekend. I think we were 0 for 3 on stolen base attempts. So that's something where I think we're going to really kind of hone in on the offensive side of things. And then, on the defensive side of things, it's continuing to try to get, reps at game speed and practice at game speed. And then our pitchers trying to analyze, where things went well, where things, where we have room to grow, and kind of what we learned this weekend. So we'll watch the film, and we got 4 days of practice before, like you said, we get ready to get on the bus, head to IUP and Slippery Rock, a couple more PSAC programs that, including my alma mater at Slippery Rock. So we're excited to go up there, take on the challenge against some good competition to get us ready.
Well, Coach, glad to have you back here on the Bobcast, and best of luck moving forward this weekend and the rest of the season.
Happy to be back, Matt. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.